Good afternoon.
Yeah, tell us more about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. I'm excited to see so many people here and so many people I know and some people that I don't know. This is exciting for me that we're having Atlantic City Innovation Summit in and of itself. I feel like is a great thing. So quickly on me, I am an entrepreneur, like Rebecca said. I was born in Atlantic City. I went to school in New York City. I helped to start a company that's now called Olo, that's publicly traded, doing online and mobile food ordering for all kinds of chains. I decided to move back to my hometown in 2015, which is sort of the bottoming of the market here, where casinos were closing, and another time in my life when people said that's a really bad decision. You shouldn't do that. And my wife and I were like, let's go home to where we're both from and see what's going on. And I think the first thing was just to listen, to go out and meet a lot of different people that are here today, people that have been working in the city of Atlantic City from a community perspective, from a business perspective, from an arts and cultural perspective in general, and see where there was opportunity.
Okay, well, tell us about some of your projects.
Sure. So the main focus for me is in developing the Orange Loop, which are the 3 beach blocks of New York Avenue, St. James, and Tennessee Avenue. And that really started with Tennessee Avenue in particular, just a few different properties, and then putting in some operating businesses. And the first one was a nonprofit leadership and yoga studio called the Leadership Studio. Opened a small independent coffee shop. Hard to imagine a city without an independent coffee shop. Atlantic City was one of them, or maybe the only one. I'd be curious to fact check that. So we opened a coffee shop called Heyday, and now have opened some other operating businesses as well. At the time, this area was called the Dead Zone. And I think where most people saw a dead zone, we saw an opportunity to build a downtown district. And that's in large part because of the way, and when I say we, it's my business partner Zenith and I, the way that we think about Atlantic City. So when you talk about a shore resort town or a gambling town, I think of a city by the sea. I think of an urbanized barrier island. I think of what is the potential when you look at Atlantic City as any other city. When you put up Miami and you put up Atlantic City, I don't think you think of them in the same way typically, but the way that I think about Atlantic City and Zenith thinks about Atlantic City is it's a city first. And so we bought some real estate, started to develop some of that real estate. There are people here that are tenants of ours. There are people here that are partners of ours. There are people here that live in the loop now and work in the loop. And again, these are things that people said were impossible in 2015, 2016, but they're happening. And we think about the scale. And so that's the other thing, Rebecca, is to think about what is the scale of Atlantic City. You look at some of these massive buildings, that's not a problem in and of itself, but you do need to see infill development as well. You need small scale, hitting singles, as the mayor talks about getting hit by pitch. We're happy to be the people that get hit by pitch because that makes progress. And so it doesn't have to be all silver bullets. A lot of it is 20-mile marching, like Jim Collins talks about, every day, showing up, doing the work, tilling the soil. And the last part of that really is around a collaborative spirit, is sort of working collectively to grow the pie, not to fight for the scraps. That is inherent in the work that we do, is to come with a spirit of collaboration, to work with lots of different folks, and to think sort of in an interdisciplinary way of how does community interact with business, how do nonprofits interact with for-profits, how does public and private and all these different work together to sort of build from the ground up, not the top down. And that's what we've been doing in the Loop, and a lot of other people here have been doing within the neighborhood context, which is an amazing thing.
Right. Have you taken lessons from other cities?
We've taken lessons from tons of different cities. And so the opportunity of living in New York for a long time and traveling for business and going to different places and doing business development and sales was you get to go see how things work. And I think there's a lot of takeaways, and you identified a lot of them on your list. And I think building fundamentally an ecosystem that people want to be in. And so people have chosen not to live in Atlantic City. We need to change that. We are changing that. That is fundamental. It can't be a place that you're just coming into. It's a place that you want to live, work, give, all of these things. So yes, Asbury Park is sort of the closest, but Asbury Park is very small. Asbury Park is very, very small, but that is a comp that we've looked at. I look at New Orleans, think about sort of the vibe of a New Orleans, let the good times roll, have fun, and also have other things going on. In terms of tech, obviously I lived in New York for a long time, Philly. Atlantic City exists because of Philadelphia, so that pipeline is, I think, a really big opportunity for a lot of growth and expansion.
But you also have built some new housing, right?
We
or
have.
renovated some
Yep.
places. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Again, to the you have to have people living in a city, and you have to have the right type of housing. You have to have market rate housing that people want to live in. And so, most of our early projects were just gut renovating old buildings that were vacant. And so the beach blocks of Atlantic City were filled with a lot of sort of vacant, dilapidated buildings. That is real. You drive beach blocks in Atlantic City and you see vacant, dilapidated buildings. In no other place I've ever been in the world do you see that on your beach blocks. And so that was the thesis of sort of building right off the boardwalk, is sort of that create a dynamic downtown and put long-term rental, not just, again, short-term rental, not just Airbnb, but put in places that people are going to live. And it's not about younger or older people, but people that want to live in Atlantic City, they want to work in Atlantic City, and they want to build their community.
Any regrets about moving to Atlantic City?
I love my hometown, and I think that the opportunity of the city is when people get engaged. So I'm very happy that I lived in Atlantic City, live in Atlantic City, spent a lot of time here, and continue to work on things that are important to us.
Yes, voting with your feet, for sure.
For sure.
And very creative shoes and socks, by the way, too. So
it's the startup days, right? This is how we dress in the startup land.
That's
and it's
right.
Nice to continue it.
That's right. It's the individualistic spirit there in your fashion choices. Okay, so thank you, Evan. I appreciate it, and everyone here does too. So round of applause for Evan.